All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Hammer and Hockey. As you can all see, we clearly are not in our regular setup. This is going to be the new normal now because Noah and I no longer are able to record down there for different reasons, but hopefully in a few months from now we'll get back together and be able to record in the room like usual, but for now, this is the new setup. So, without further ado, we've had a lot of action going on in the NHL, obviously. A lot of signings, lots of trades. And we would start off the segment by just doing one winner and one loser for each of us. And yeah, so why don't you start off with your loser first,
My
and then we'll go
loser,
from
my
there.
loser first. Okay, all right, get the bad out of the way.
Yeah.
All right, my losers. Could be a bit of a hot take. I don't know, but my losers are the Tampa Bay Lightning. For a couple reasons. Number one is the John Carlson contract. So I don't think that this is like inherently a terrible move for them. I understand why they did it. When you really when you boil it down, the reason why they had to make this move is because they got rid of Darren Radish, number one, and they were clearly in on Werenski, and they thought they were going to get a deal done, and then he came out and said he wanted to stay in Columbus, and right after they signed John Carlson. It's 2 years, 8.5 million, and he's 36. He's not quite the same defenseman he used to be. He's still a good defenseman, and I think that this is probably the best move Tampa Bay could have made given the circumstances. But the fact that it got here, I still think it's a lose. Like they are now, in my opinion, a worse team losing Radish and having John Carlson, an aged John Carlson. And secondly, they also signed Ilya Mikheyev for 4 years at 3.85 million, which is not a disaster. It's not a terrible move or anything, but Mikheyev has been pretty injury prone recently. He's 31, and he's kind of always been this kind of like guy who's there, but he's never really been like a huge impact player in my opinion, especially watching him in the Leafs over the years. So I think that's kind of an okay move. The Nick Paul move was a decent move for both teams with the Leafs. Doesn't really move the window too much. So yeah, that's I would say Tampa Bay. Not a disaster, but they're definitely my losers so far
Yeah,
for
and it
the
just feels like
trade
they haven't done a whole
season.
lot to really get better, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Moving on to my loser, I think the San Jose Sharks as a team, it's kind of a weird one. I think some people may see it as a big win for them or a big loss, and for me, it's more about we are talking about this earlier. It's the process of how you go about things, and we were like comparing it and like contrasting it as to Chicago, right, and how much they're rushing their process, and it feels like San Jose had been up to this point doing a really good job, in my opinion, of building it up properly and slowly, and getting the right players in place, and not signing any dumb contracts. Um, Going out and trading for Darnell Nurse, not only that, giving assets up for Darnell Nurse and bailing the Edmonton Oilers out of that contract and taking it on yourself, in my opinion, is a bad move. I understand that you want to get better now, and it makes them better now. It does, but it doesn't help the longevity of your team, in my opinion, right? And you could say the same thing about the Truba deal. I think that one is not as bad. I think the Truba is a really solid defenseman, and he brings a lot of things that they need. He brings that physicality, the grit. So I don't hate that move, but I just think overall, and then of course the Marchment signing too. That's another one where it's a guy that he's a good player, but he's not really worth that kind of money. And it feels like all of a sudden out of nowhere they're trying to rush the process again, and I have no idea why because they've been doing such a good job. I thought they made a really good trade at the draft to acquire, and then they get two really good players in the draft, and then they do this, and it feels like they're going backwards. Contrasting that towards like we are saying Chicago, that what they're doing and making crazy signings and bad trades. And then you look at like a team like Montreal, who just keeps doing it the right way. And I thought San Jose was kind of the Western version of them until today, and now I have concerns a little bit. I still think they are a better team, and I think they might make the playoffs this year. So overall, like it's hard to say it's a loss. You know what I mean? Because they got better, but it just feels like they got better through a bad process, if that makes sense. And that's why for me they're a bit of a loser, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think it's also just all those moves in conjunction. Like, I think
Yeah.
if they had maybe just made one of those or two, we're maybe not having this conversation,
Yeah,
but
like if
it's
they
just
just
like,
signed Truba, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's fine. I know it's maybe a little bit expensive, but I can understand where they're coming from, why they're going that way. But like, especially the Nurse one. The Nurse one, I couldn't believe that they got Edmonton had nowhere to go there,
yeah,
right? You bailed out a division rival and gave them the opportunity to now turn into we know is going to be your winner, right, of this free agency. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that move, and like I said, like I just don't rush the process. Get back to doing things the right way, hopefully. But yeah, overall, it's not a huge loss. I'm not like they didn't destroy like the whole thing, but I didn't love it for them personally.
yeah, yeah. No, I'd have to agree. Anyways, on to the winners. As you just spoiled, my winner is the Edmonton Oilers. I think they've done a fantastic job so far. Moving Darnell Nurse is in itself is such a win for them, and the fact that they actually got like some prospects like in return, like obviously these guys aren't like high level prospects, but like it's something to add to your pipeline, and they didn't have to give up anything or retain any salary. So
Yeah, it's huge,
I
huge.
think that's huge, huge move for them. And then just overall, I think they're just making a lot of good moves. I mean, like re-signing Connor Brown, they know what kind of player he is. He's a guy who forechecks hard, puts some points up, sound defensively, right? Joel Armia is a really good ad for them, I think, because they need some defensive responsibility and more penalty killing, and that's exactly what he brings. 2 years, 4 million, so 2 million a year. I think you take that all day. Same thing, sort of with Luosterainen. Is it just another good, solid bottom six player that's going to add some defensive responsibility, penalty killing. Ryan Lindgren, a good stay-at-home defenseman, a guy that's going to shut down stuff, which is again another need for Edmonton. And then the big two moves that I really like is number one, they signed Freddie Anderson. They finally make a goaltending move. We've been screaming it for so long, and they've finally done something. And I think it's a good contract. 1 year, 1 million up to 2.8 based on performance bonuses. I think if he plays like over 10
Yeah,
games, so like likely
it's a
he's gonna get
no-brainer. It's a no-brainer move for them.
2.8. Yeah, so that's a no-brainer. Great move. And they also got Levi as well, who's not done super well, but he's just another goalie they can add to their pipeline and just
Yeah,
another shot. Maybe this guy turns into someone that can be valuable for them. And then a sneaky move that I like that is actually a player I wanted the Leafs to sign. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't. Is Ryan Shea. So Ryan Shea, a lot of you guys are probably going, who's Ryan Shea? He played on Pittsburgh, and last year was the first time he's played like a full NHL season. He put up 35 points in 82 games. He's 6'1", 200 pounds. Now he is 29 years old, so he's a bit of a late bloomer. But if there's any position in hockey, other than goaltending, I guess
yeah,
that you know players can come on late in their careers, it's defense. So I mean, he's been a reliable like guy defensively. He was a big penalty killer for them, and he put up 35 points in 82 games, as I said. And the Oilers just got him for 4 million a year, for 5 years. And with the way the cap's going up, that's nothing. So I think it's a great shot.
I like
There's
British.
a little
Yeah,
bit of risk. Yeah,
I
there's a
like Ryan Shea.
tiny yeah, there's a little bit of risk there because it's like, okay, well, let's see him do it again, right? But if this guy even does like a little bit of what he did last year, with even just a little bit of regression, you're laughing. That's a great deal.
He's a
So
solid middle pairing guy. I mean,
yeah,
he fills in where like what you lost for Nurse, in my opinion, and you're doing it for half the price, basically.
and he's much more sound defensively, which is what Edmonton needs. Edmonton
Yeah.
does not need to cheat for offense. You have
No,
the best offensive player on the planet with paired with
two of
one
them
of the other.
basically.
You have two of them,
Yeah,
and then you have other guys too surrounding them
and
that
you
are good
have maybe the
offensively.
best offensive defenseman too, arguably. I'm not saying he is, but
Yeah, yeah, you can certainly make that argument, right? So they don't need to cheat for offense. So you get a guy like Ryan Shea, who's maybe even a little bit less. He's a little more underwhelming defensively or offensively than Darnell Nurse, but he's for sure more responsible. So I think you take that trade all day.
yeah, and yeah, I still like you're just saying with the trade. Like I just the fact they get off that Nurse contract for nothing is and actually got stuff in return is just that's a huge win in itself. And then they make all these little
Yeah.
moves as well, especially the goaltending stuff because we've been saying, like you said, it's always an issue for them. And people want to say, well, the defense isn't good enough, and that's part of it. But you have to have goalies that know how to win too. And Freddie has done some winning. You just saw him win a cup. I know he didn't finish the job, but he was there, and he had some big games for Carolina, right? And I like the addition of Levi too. I mean, he's struggled, but he hasn't really had a solid like runway, and so maybe he gets a good chance at Edmonton here and proves himself, right?
Yeah, and
Still,
like the numbers don't lie. The goaltending has not been good enough. It has been subpar. Like
no,
just look at the numbers. It has not been good enough.
yeah,
So
and I like you have three guys now, in my opinion. Like between one of them, hopefully one of them, like even Jari could have a bounce back. Like between the three of them, hopefully one of them is solid enough to get you through and to hopefully push for a cup. Like I think that they've done a good job with what they have with limited assets and limited like cap room to actually make the goaltending much better than it was last year.
yeah, 100%.
Like
Edmonton doesn't need the best goal in the league. They just need someone who's capable and actually a starter. That's all they need.
even Freddie Anderson at this point in his career, I think is a better goalie that they've had. When like as long as he's healthy and playing, of course, then I don't even know since when. Like
I couldn't name anybody to be
maybe
honest.
Mike Smith when he was cooking for a little bit back then. Like there's yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a huge yeah. I think it's a huge W for the Oilers. I mean, are they a way better team than they were? No, but did they address some areas that were weak, like the contract and the goaltending? Yes, and so
Yeah, these aren't sexy moves, but they are good, solid, sound moves. You don't need sexy moves. You have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. You just need some insulating. That's all they need. And
yeah,
I think those are
exactly,
really, really, really good moves.
definitely, I agree, 100%.
All right, now let's hear your winner here.
Yeah, so I think the last winner here is Utah. Not the last winner, not that there's no one else that had a good day, but I think they had a bit of a quiet day because a lot of people don't really give a shit about Utah. But I mean, you get Vincent Trocheck, who, I mean, let's just be honest, he's a great player. He's great offensively. He's great defensively. You get more center depth. Most people are dying for the center depth. And then you go and sign Anders Lee for a decent contract, a guy who, has a lot of experience, winning and leading teams. And I know the Islanders haven't been the most successful team, but I think he's a great player that can help them win now. And you look at how, like, honestly, this year I thought they were like a pretty solid team and they were pretty close to getting to that next step. And I think adding a couple more pieces like this can really make a difference for them. A little more scoring and a little more defense goes a long way. And they were very close, I think, to maybe beating Vegas with those two pieces. Maybe they do, and you get through Vegas, and then who knows what happens. So I think with these additions, you're now getting pretty close to maybe contending for like that third spot in that division. Not saying they're going to because it's a tough division, but they 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 keep making like every year there's a little bit of progress, and they're not rushing the process like we talk about. They're doing it the right way. They're not making any crazy signings or crazy trades, but they're just making the right deals at the right time to build their team in the right way. And I think that Utah, ever since they've moved from Phoenix or Arizona, they've been doing this every year basically, and they keep getting a little better. And I think this year they're going to get even better again. And it's going to make it harder for some of those teams in the Pacific to get one of those wildcard spots because I don't think they're going to be going anywhere. So especially with San Jose too now up in their game. So it's a good response from them too, because it's not going to be a walk if you don't make your team a little better. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I have to agree. I've been a huge fan of their front office, the moves they've been making. Like a lot of teams we see, like Seattle, for example, they get a franchise and they want to have like they want to be competitive right away, and they're so like
I mean, we can get to Seattle now,
aggressive.
dude. Seattle, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. We talked about this the other day. Like, I have no idea what they're doing, and no one wants to play there. They are handing out money. They're trying to give it away. I mean, Robertson denies to go there. They didn't do anything in free agency. I'm sure they wanted to do some stuff, but no one wants to go there. No one wants to play there. They're like that desperate ex that no one wants back, even though
Yeah, and then they totally fucked up Shane Wright. Like we've talked about that. It's not like super relevant right now, but like why have him up there sitting in the press box on the bench? Like I think they killed the development of Shane Wright.
yeah, and they're in this spot now too where we're just talking about it, right? We'll keep hammering this fucking drum. Like the process is very important on how you build your teams, and you cannot rush them, especially when you have teams that are in your division or in the division over in your conference that are building it the right way, and they're going to surpass you. San Jose is about to pass them, period. Like they already, I think they
Yeah.
did last year. They're going to this year. Anaheim already
Yeah.
passed you. What are you going to do to all of a sudden jump back in front of those teams and do it for a long time? Because they're not going anywhere. They're young teams, right? So they're just lost at sea and they have no way of finding their way home. Like
I think they just wanted to be Vegas so bad,
yeah, I think that's
and
part of it
it
too,
just
right?
and they just needed to realize that like they changed the entry like draft, like it's like the rules were
It
different,
was never gonna happen.
and even then, even if they hadn't, everything went right for Vegas. Like
It's
that is
true.
so hard to replicate. Like that's not normal. It's insane. So like
Yeah.
you can't just come to into the league expecting to be Vegas. Like,
Yeah, and I think too, like we can get into this too. Like people idolize Vegas a lot because it feels like everything they do it right. And I don't want to take credit away from them because they've done a lot of good things and they've been very successful. They've probably been arguably the most successful franchise since they've come into the league. I mean, but it does feel like they're pushing their luck here a little bit, and they're gonna run the well dry eventually because you can only continue to churn out stuff for like so long. I mean, they're basically out. Like personally, like because we're talking about free agency, I didn't love their fucking day either. You know, we can only choose a couple of teams here, so but like I know this wasn't actually on the day, but they trade Dorofeev away, who's their best young player, like best sub 25 player, and they do that, and they end up re-signing Anderson. Um, and he
for a
just
lot.
like yeah for a lot of money, and he just had a pretty bad playoffs, and he's an older defenseman. And I'm not saying to it just they're losing assets and they're getting older, and I don't know how they continue to get better without having young assets to burn and to use. And so it's why it's important, like we say, like I understand with Vegas because they're there, they're trying to compete, they're trying to win, so it's fine. I'm not saying that they're, but you can't just copy what they're doing when you're not there yet. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you're not on the top, you can't act like you're on the top. You can't be like just trading away everything or trying to sign the biggest fish you can because it's just not going to work. You can't force your way to the top. You look at
Yeah. 100%.
any of these teams that have won recently, it's not how they did it, right? I know like Florida, for example, let's just use them. They're a great example of trading for guys who maybe are a little undervalued or overlooked by other teams, and recouping them and making them play in their system and making them so just trying to trade all your assets or pay all the money you have to try and get one player and think it's going to turn everything around. It's just not.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry everyone, we had a little technical difficulty. It's our first time doing this, on the Zoom calls and stuff. So back into what we were talking about. We were talking about before free agency, Seattle, etc. We wanted to transition to talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Lots of things have been happening, lots of moves. They obviously have had the biggest fishes so far. I mean, when you combine Bobrovsky and Radish together. So, what are your thoughts? We'll start with Bobrovsky first. He's obviously a huge piece and I think a very controversial move. I'm personally not a huge fan of it, as you know, but I was curious what you think.
Yeah. Um, it's definitely like a mixed bag with this one for sure. Um, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things to like about this move, and there are a lot of things to dislike. Obviously, we know who Bobrovsky is. We know what he's done and what he's accomplished in this league. He's been one of the best goalies in the league over the last decade, but he's coming off of a not so great year after going to three Stanley Cup Finals in a row, which can take its toll on a goalie, right? So there's certainly that. However, if a guy like him does bounce back, it is a huge addition to your team. So it's a really big swing. He's going to be 38 years old, starting the season this year, and he's getting paid $7 million for the next 3 years. So it's definitely a bit risky because if he doesn't perform this year, you're stuck with him for 2 more years at that's a pretty high AAV for a goalie, especially one that's going to be 38, 39, and 40.
Yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of the deal because of that. I mean, could he bounce back and be great? Yes. Do I think he will? I have no idea. I was always the one telling you I think he's probably due for a regression and he's going to fall off. And I think Florida thinks the same thing. That's why they didn't want to go out and pay him that money, right? Now, maybe Toronto's right. Maybe he does bounce back and maybe he's great for us. And if that happens, like it raises the ceiling of this team for sure, right? I mean, having him at his best form or close to that at least makes this team much better. But I was a huge fan of Hildeby. I believe in the kid. I think he's going to be a really good goalie in this league, and I think that obviously we'll talk about that trade with Tampa, but losing him sucks, and you're relying now on an injury-prone Stolarz, a goalie who's looked like he's maybe starting to get washed, and then a rookie who's never played in the league. That's kind of the bad outlook on it, if you want to take the negative stance, right? So when it happened, like the first thing I said is please don't trade Hildeby, and of course, a few hours later they do. So I'm not a huge fan of the move. That being said, I understand the move, and it could work out and be really good. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess. Moving on, I think to the Nick Paul trade. I think that's probably the next biggest thing to talk about. That trade I actually am a big fan of, at least for. I'm not a big fan of moving off of Hildeby, but I am a big fan of getting him. I think the Leafs needed to get back some depth on this team, and he definitely adds that, right? Playing the third center role, he can play up and down your lineup. He can play wing. He can take center draws, right? He can play center. He's physical. He's got some more speed, right? So overall, like I like the trade. I like the move. I think it makes the team better. And I think like we're talking about with Borowski, like when you have both those guys, if they both bounce back and have good years, like this team's ceiling is raised for sure, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, Nick Paul he's such a great player, and he was a huge part of those Tampa Bay runs. Um, he's a guy who can put up 15 to 20 goals while killing penalties, being good defensively, and just being like a pest, right? I mean, he's a big boy, 6'4", 230, and he's got wheels too. So he's a handful
Yeah.
to deal with for sure. He really bolsters that third line. To me, I know some people have him at wing. To me, this screams third line center. I think he's playing third line center for the Leafs.
No,
I'd
definitely.
bet on
100% he's
that for
playing third line
sure.
center, yeah.
It does hurt to lose Hildeby. I'm in agreement with that. Like I was, sad about Joseph Woll leaving, but I was high on Hildeby, so I was like, okay, I'm excited to see what the kid can
Yeah.
do, especially considering that last year, among goalies who had played at least 20 games, he was third in save percentage.
Yeah.
So now, obviously, that's slightly nitpicked, but the point is 20 games is a decent NHL sample size, and he performed extremely well. So it's a little tough to swallow that because I think that he's capable of being a really good goalie in this league. But I do understand that making a move like this and getting Nick Paul definitely makes your team better.
Well, and you have assets, right? So between between him and Artie, right, in the AHL, like those are two good young goalies, and so you move off of one to get better somewhere else. I understand the thought process, but now you lose one of those chances, right? And so as, as Leafs fans, like we've had these kind of trades before with Tuukka Rask, for example. It's definitely a scary trade, but I understand it. I think it makes the team better now for sure. Moving on to some of the other signings, right? So Sissons was a pretty big one. That's a bit of an overpay, but I understand why they went out and did that. I think a huge part of what the Leafs were doing is trying to add depth, but trying to add depth that can play defensively, right? And so that way they can relieve Matthews and let him actually play the role that they
Yes.
want him to play, get back to being that goal scorer. Because I do think if this team is going to get back to being a playoff contender and maybe even a cup contender, they need to have Matthews firing on all cylinders. He can't be a 35, 40 goal scorer. It's just not going to be good enough. They need him to be a 50 goal scorer plus. And I understand he's good defensively and you want him for those matchups, and that's great. And he can do that in the playoffs, by all means. But during the playoffs, he needs to fucking score goals. Period. Like he needs to
It's
get
about
back to being
balance.
that guy. Yeah, it's about balance for sure.
It's
So
about balance. He can't
and
be starting the amount of draws that he was in the defensive zone again.
no,
Like it's just too
no,
much.
it's too
Like
many. Yeah,
Matthews he's a guy who you can deploy defensively, but ideally, that is majority of that's going to be happening when you're up in games and you're closing up big games and you're like, hey, we have a lead. There's 5 minutes left. We're going to put Austin Matthews on the ice, right? So yeah, it just can't be happening like at the rate it was because it's just too much of a defensive burden. Clearly, we've seen that with 2 years in a row. with Chief. So yeah, that needs to change. And getting a guy like Colton Sissons definitely helps you relieve a lot of that defensive burden for Matthews.
Yeah. And then they go out and they add Roslovic too, who I like that move because I think you think about it in the sense that they had Michelli. He's basically a Michelli replacement, but he's a better player. He's going to score more goals, and he's played with Matthews. He can play up and down your lineup a little bit more. He can play center too, right? So I think they've done a lot of good things as far as getting guys like even Bluger who can play center and wing. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and especially if you have injuries, you can kind of change your lineup. Or even if they're not injuries, you just want to kind of see how different things look. It gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of movement in your lineup, right? So I like what they did there with that signing. What do you think about the Jack Roslovic signing?
I'm a big fan of that. I mean, we needed right hand shots in the
And that's
lineup,
yeah, that's true.
so
Right?
that's
You definitely need right-handed shots. I mean, the only guy we have right now is Willie, so that was a
yeah.
must
And now
sign, right?
we have him plus I believe Colton Sissons is also right handed. So that you need that in your lineup. You can't just have all lefties.
Yeah,
And he brings speed, which is one thing that the team lacked last year. Is like, hey, these it was too much like big shut down hard hockey, right? And obviously that's a good thing. We need that, but we need more balance. Like mentioned with
yeah.
like
The
Nick
Leafs are
Paul is a
always
big
like
guy, but he's fast.
they want to be on the extremes. They don't want to like have let's figure out where the middle is, okay? Instead of
Yeah,
having a super slow
exactly.
old team and a super young skilled team. I mean, somewhere in the middle of that is where they want to be. So
Yeah, exactly. And Roslovic has scored 20 goals 3 times. He's done it 2 years in a row on two different teams. Um, and at a relatively low AAV at 4 million, I like it a lot. I think it's a great contract. 2 years, not very risky at all. So I think he adds for sure some goal scoring some depth goal scoring the Leafs are missing.
yeah, so I think I want to talk to you about though reflecting on everything that's happened so far because the Leafs have had a lot of change over the past year from where they were at this point last year, right? And I was thinking about it like people are really excited right now because they feel like things are happening and they're making moves and they're adding to the team, which I understand that's a good thing. And but there has to be like some realism in the sense that like look at the team they have now versus last year. How much better is this team than it was last year? What do you think?
You know what? I maybe you'll disagree with you. I think it's already quite a bit better than it was last year. Just based on the fact, um, I mean, we're not talking about Radish right now because we're talking about what happened during
No,
free
I'm talking
agency,
about everything, everything.
but that's a huge. I know that's what I'm saying. A huge move, right? Having him like, when's the last time we've had a guy who's capable? If he does what he did last year on Tampa, or even close to it, we have not had a number one defenseman like that, and I can't even remember like. And then you add a guy, Roslovic. You add some of these guys, and then we're getting McKenna, right? So I do think that this team looks a lot different in a lot of good ways. And also we didn't mention too Brandon Duhaime, another good physical fast winger who
Good
he plays
defensively.
hard, good defensively,
Yeah,
right?
fourth
He
line
fits
role.
that mold so much better than some of the other guys we've had who are just slow and big, right? He's a guy who's like just not fun to play against, which is what you want your fourth line to do. Again, not only is it about making this team better than last year, but it also, like we said, freeing up Matthews, right? That was a big thing. If Matthews is better last year, we may not miss the playoffs last year. Maybe we're not the same team we were
Well,
the year
yeah, it's part of
before.
it is to injuries as well, of course. Like I
Yeah,
think you can look at the Leafs team last year and 100% say with objectivity that they were a better team than what the result was, right? If they're healthy and everyone's playing better, like, and everything doesn't go to shit, basically, they're not the fifth worst team in the NHL. But
yeah,
I think, like, I don't know, I just look back on, like, last year and, like, looking at the depth of the team, you thought it looked pretty good, right? Like, for example, you had Nicholas Waugh and Scotty Lawton as your 3 and 4C, right? I would argue
yeah.
that's
But
better
Nicholas
than,
Waugh was deployed horribly by Berube. I think he
I
did
understand
an
that,
awful
but
job with him.
yeah, I understand that. So if you're saying that the coaching is going to be the difference, that's something, but like
Well, I think it's an accumulation of a lot of things, right? I don't think it's just one thing that made the Leafs season go wrong. That's more so what I'm saying,
I know, but
right?
I'm just talking about comparing the teams on paper from what they were last year to now, right? Like I don't think that we have better
Right.
center depth than we did last year.
Well, no, no, that's fair enough. But also too, again, right, getting guys back from injury too. Like people want to talk about the Leafs decor, right? Um, and they're forgetting the fact that we didn't have Tanev last year. So if it's expected that Chris Tanev is going to play for us this season, that changes your decor also like a ton, right? So you add him and Darren Radish as your top two right shot defensemen, and that's a big difference, right? And I think the Emil Andre addition is a really sneaky one that I think is getting overlooked a lot. Great defensive metrics, and he moves the puck. That's a big thing. The Leafs,
Yeah.
we couldn't break out of our own
No, yeah,
zone,
the
right?
decor the
Like,
decor last year was too old and slow. I think the decor is definitely better this year for sure. Especially if you're like you said, if Tanev gets back to being healthy and like they get that McCabe Tanev line back and running. I mean, that's a huge part of what made the team the year before that so effective, right? They're able to put those guys against really good first lines, second lines, and shut them down. So getting that back, getting Radish, getting actually I think too for the power play, getting him on the point is going to allow the power play to be more dynamic because they never really had that threat from the point ever really like in the entire Matthews era. So
yeah,
it'll take some of the extra bodies away from Matthews' side, right, and bring him a little maybe a little more to Radish's side. And if they don't, then Radish will score goals, right?
yeah.
So
And another thing I want to add as well is Easton Cowan, who,
yeah,
you know,
player
I know there's been
development.
rumors, right? Player development, right? Easton Cowan takes a step,
Matthew
and
Nyes too
this
can
year,
take
which
another step.
Matthew Knight, right? Like how much of a difference does it make having a guy like Easton Cowan on the team who is all of a sudden putting up maybe 50 points this year?
And yeah, I also think too, like people really want to undersell McKenna. People are always like, "Well, he's a rookie. Like, don't have too much expectation for him, right? He's just don't act like he's gonna save this team." And it's like, hey, well, there's two different sides of this, right? It's not like he's gonna be out there being a plug. I mean, he's a very, very dynamic, skilled player. He went first overall for a fucking reason, right? So you plug this guy into your top six or into your third line or wherever he ends up playing most of the year, he's gonna be effective. He's gonna add to this lineup 100%, right?
Yeah, I hate that argument so much. I think it's so stupid because obviously in their first season, first round picks aren't going to be at their peak. Like
Yeah,
no
it's not
shit,
gonna be scoring
right?
120 points next year, obviously. But
No. But like look at like other first round picks. Look at Matthews. Matthews had 69 points and 40 tucks. Are you telling me that the Leafs add a 70 point 40 goal guy to their roster? I'm not saying that's what McKenna's going to be. That doesn't help them right away. I'm sorry,
100% it does.
that's insane, right? So like I think it's completely reasonable, especially too considering that McKenna is going to be playing with likely Nylander or Matthews, who are top of the line offensive players. Why is it crazy to think that he can't put up 60 points, which I don't think is that high of a ceiling for
I think
a
it's a realistic expectation. If he doesn't hit at least 50, I think that's a bad year,
yeah,
especially
especially
with the
considering
players
if
he's
he's
playing with.
what he's playing with. Yeah, no, you would expect that from like a first round pick just in general, normally 50, 60 points. I think what I'm expecting from McKenna is more in the 60 to 70 because of the fact that I think he's going to be playing with Matthews. And
Yeah.
adding a player like that to your roster at league minimum is a huge boost. And anybody who says it isn't is just fucking coping with the fact that the Leafs got the first overall pick because they don't like the Leafs.
It's
I'm
true.
sorry. Like, that's my stance on it, at least.
Yeah. So I guess overall we can say the team is definitely, I think, better than it was last
Yeah,
year.
and they're probably not done yet, too.
They're probably not done. I don't know how much there is left to do, but this team is definitely, I think, more complete than it was at last year, and they've filled some holes they needed to fill. Are they a perfect team? No. Are they a clear Stanley Cup contender? No. But could they get back there? I think they definitely have given themselves that chance. Not saying it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think, like we were saying before, like the Bobrovsky thing needs to work out. If it doesn't, that's going to change things. Like it's a very big risk in the net, right? So, but if
Yeah.
everything goes right for this team, I know you can say that about a lot of teams, but everything goes right for this team, they could have a very very good season. A very very good season.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we've hammered home the Leafs enough for today. So maybe we should move on to. I guess maybe this kind of ties into the Leafs a little bit, but the Zach Werenski shenanigans and everything that went down there. So basically, we were under the impression that he wanted out of Columbus. Not necessarily he wanted out of Columbus, but he wasn't going to re-sign with Columbus. And I guess Columbus was under the impression, well, if you're not going to be here long term, we're going to get value for you now, just like Ottawa did with Brady, right?
Yeah, I was reading that he had a conversation with the GM. They were talking about his future, and he said, "I can't guarantee my future. I
Yeah,
don't know." And then so they said, "Are you open to us exploring some trades?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll listen."
yeah. And so we get that Dallas trade that was basically set for Thomas Harley, which would have been a good trade for Columbus. I think that's a good return. Obviously, it would have been straight 1-for-1, so you're getting something else on top of that. And it makes, I mean, Dallas even more of a competitor than they are already, right? But I guess he denies that trade, and he's only talking about going to Tampa or Toronto. So I think for a while people were getting pretty hyped up that he may be coming to Toronto or maybe going to Tampa, which would have sucked for the Leafs. But he ends up deciding to stay. I guess they had a conversation. I've been hearing both sides of people saying that actually he's still going to get traded and that was all just a bunch of bullshit. But I guess we'll find out.
It's
My
true. It could be a
question,
PR move.
yeah, my question I wanted to ask you, I guess, is one more thing with the Leafs is how would you have felt about them getting Orensky if they were trading someone like Nyes, or it probably would have been Nyes, Danford, and maybe a pick. I'm guessing something like that.
Yeah. It's you know what? It's like such like mixed emotions. Um, I will say I did hear like I can't exactly remember where the source is, so who knows how reliable this is. That it was more going to be like a Cow and Danford
Yeah,
package
I
plus
heard they were
picks.
trying to do that. Doesn't mean
That they
that Columbus
yeah
was going to accept that. I mean, the whole reason I think part of the reason why this didn't get done is because Columbus wasn't impressed with what they were receiving back. I think
yeah,
if
which is maybe they're making a play here and they're saying, hey, we're not getting enough here. We're going to say you're staying, and then maybe they'll get a better offer
yeah, that's
from
true. I think yeah, that's true. I think Toronto and
possible.
Tampa both weren't giving them enough in their eyes to move off of Rensky, and so they didn't go through. So I don't think that Cowan and Danford would have been enough, right? Because
Yeah,
yeah,
that's fair. So
if you manage to move, as much as I love Cowan, I don't want to see him go anywhere. It's fucking Zach Werenski here. It's one of the best defensemen in the league. He won the Norris. If you can add that guy to your line without losing Matthew Nyes, that's a huge upgrade to your team, for sure, right?
100%. I mean, we were just talking about the Leafs decor. If you like, let's say you get rid of Riley, maybe it's not going in this trade, but they need to move some caps. So obviously, they would have to move Riley. Probably not for much, but whatever. You have Zach Werenski now, right? That decor all of a sudden looks like pretty fucking good. It's going from being like okay, like there's some upside here. I like some of the moves. This is like a good decor. We'll see what some of these guys do next year. To like, hey, this is a seriously good decor. Um, and I love Matthew Nyes, so like it would really hurt to trade him. Especially the thing is, he's got 2 years left on his deal, right? So like, if he hasn't signed back with Toronto and he leaves after 2 years, that's a tough pill to swallow. Like
Blow up the
Matthew
team.
Nyes, yeah, Matthew Nyes
Yeah,
is still so young and he's so good. And clearly he's a premium in the NHL. If you look at all the teams that are interested around the league, it's everybody wants a piece of Matthew Nyes, right? So, you know, I have mixed feelings about it. I do think that like maybe it's a really exciting thing to talk about. Like Zach Werenski is coming to your hockey team, but it's like maybe let's calm down. We did just sign Darren Radish, and maybe we're better off taking a swing somewhere else that's not as big to add one more supporting cast member to the
yeah. You
decor
also create more holes
instead.
in your lineup by making that trade too, right? Even though you are
Yeah,
making one part of your team better, you're making one part of your team worse. Like for example, the Dallas side of it, they're upgrading, right? He's a better defenseman than Harley
yeah.
right now. So that for them is a no-brainer because they're trying to win now. So I understand that move. From Toronto's side, it's
I think for me, I would feel more comfortable if we had a season of Easton Cowan breakout first, because then I'm saying, okay, we have another left winger that can come in, and he's not going to be Matthew Nyes, but another guy who can another left winger that can definitely play in our top six. Right now, I think Cowan can, but that's still an unanswered question.
yeah.
It's not guaranteed.
No, it's not. Okay, so I wanted to move on to talk about a little bit more of the Atlantic in general as a scope because there's been different moves from different teams. I guess first we can really quickly touch on Montreal because this is what we're talking about earlier in this episode of like doing things the right way. I mean, the fact that they get Demidov for under $10 million a year for 8 years is an insanely good contract, and they just keep stacking up good contracts. And to be honest, it just feels like eventually they're just going to win a cup because they're creating so much value on their team for such cheap prices. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, I have to agree. Such a good contract, such a good signing for Demi Dove, man. Like that contract
I'm
is
surprised
gonna
he'd
age
sign
so
that.
well.
Like I
Yeah,
really am. I mean, it just goes to show you how badly like some other teams fuck these things up because Montreal is doing it exactly
yeah,
the right way. You look at like a lot of successful teams over the years. It's so important to build out your foundation with good structured contracts, right? Look at Florida. Look at Tampa. When Boston had their really good, strong team for all those years, they had really good contracts. Pittsburgh too, right? So Montreal feels like they're gonna if they keep signing deals like this, I mean they're gonna be around for a long time,
yeah.
10 plus years. Like this is very very well done. And then they signed Dobish for I think is what around 6 mil AAV for
There's
3 years, a little
so it's
less than
three
that.
years,
It's five point
five and a
three or
half,
something. Yeah,
five
five
and a
and a
half
half. Yeah,
per. Yeah,
which is you know
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's a fair deal. You like to get more term on it, but because you're just gonna have to re-up him again in 3 years, and if he's the goal you think he's gonna be, by then he's gonna ask for maybe double that, right? And if he's maybe not the goal you thought he was gonna be, well then you're paying him 6 mil right now for what? So unless he's somewhere in the middle, I guess, and it works out like right like, but I still overall a lot of great deals for Montreal, and we were talking about this earlier too, like not that they're a winner of free agency because they didn't go out and do anything, but they won in the sense they didn't go out and try and overpay to make their team better right now. You know, they didn't go and give Boone Jenner like $7 million a year so he could come play 2C for them, right? They're being patient. They believe in their process. They believe in the team that they have, and they know that eventually the right guy will come along that fill the holes that they need to fill.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah. They didn't do anything too crazy. No big swings, but they took care of an important contract, and locked him up long term. So I don't think you can ask for too much more if you're a Montreal fan. Like you got to be pretty satisfied with what they've done so far.
yeah, no, definitely. And then I want to talk about Florida too. Like obviously they've built a very good team here. And I don't want to come off as, someone who's saying this stuff because we're Leaf fans. I have to have some question marks though with their approach to the offseason. I understand you go out and get Brady and it makes your team better. Like he's a great player. Did you overpay for him? That's debatable. I mean, some people think they underpaid. Some people think they overpaid. Doesn't really matter. You need to win now. You got a good player in your team. Yeah, I mean, he adds more depth. He makes their forward group maybe the best in the NHL. Probably the best in the NHL. But is it worth doing that and sacrificing other parts of your team, right? The goaltending right now, it's for me is questionable at best. Like going out and getting Markstrom, I understand it's not like they had a million options to choose from, but you're getting another goalie who's pretty old, who's been struggling, who's getting paid also a lot of money. Doesn't really feel like there's, I know the term is not as long as what Bobrovsky was asking for, but like it just for me it's a bit of a questionable move. And then they get Schmid, I think it's from Vegas, right? And he's a good goalie, but it's your backup goalie. You're not really gonna rely on him to win you a cup or anything. So I am curious to see how that all works out for them because if Markstrom struggles at all and he doesn't have a great year, then you know it could it could look like they brought in Brady just to bring in his brother and they kind of fucked up their team because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, like you said, like it's not like he's really that much younger. He at the current moment right now, he is 1 year, like a year and a half younger, and he's getting paid 1 million less per year
Yeah,
than Bobrovsky.
yeah, and he's
With one less year, to be fair,
on term, and
on the
we were
term.
obviously we were hearing that in Florida he wanted the 5 or 6 years, and I don't think Bobrovsky was gonna budge on that because he's that kind of guy. He's just a bastard. He's like, I deserve this, and Marchand got this, and da 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 da. And obviously the Leafs were like, well, we don't really care what Marchand got. Like this is what we're willing to give you, right? So that's how that worked
Yeah,
out. But I still,
that's true. Maybe he for Florida he wasn't gonna budge off of like maybe the contract he signed with the Leafs he wouldn't have been willing to do with Florida.
yeah, who
It's
knows? But
possible.
um, it's questionable. Like once again, they're still a cup contender. They're going to be a really good team next year, but the goaltending could be an issue. I'm not saying it will be, but it could be an issue, and it'd be really fucking annoying to have that good of a forward group and like decor and not have the goaltending needed to win a cup, you know. And then of course there's the obvious parts where like how much regression do you expect with how old their team is and the injuries and stuff like that could hurt them as well.
Yeah, that's true. Marchand's pretty old. What's he like? 37,
Yeah, so I just wanted to cover that real
38.
quick. I know people are talking about how positive Florida's been, and I'm not saying that they're not going to be a beast. They're going to be a wagon next year because they will be probably a wagon, and I expect them to be back in the playoff race and chasing a cup. But I think there are some potential areas of concern maybe if people aren't really talking about too much, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we can move on and talk about maybe the Rangers really quickly as well.
Yeah, I know you have some thoughts on the Rangers.
Yeah, I think everybody has some thoughts on the Rangers. What the fuck are they doing? Do they know what they're doing? Do they know where they're trying to go? They're like trading for old guys, trading for young guys. You know, they trade for Dorofeyev and then they sign him to a massive extension, and then they trade out Trocheck for Sean Dirt. Like it just feels like they're not trying to rebuild, but they're trying to compete. But then they're getting rid of players that could help them compete, and so they're gonna be in this like gross middle.
I really don't know. I don't understand the Trocheck trade. It doesn't make sense to me, really. Like, I feel like they could have gotten more. Um, yeah, I don't know. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and I don't understand trading away a bunch of picks for Dorofeyev. I mean, not that he's not a good player, and I know I gave shit to Vegas a little bit because they gave away their best young player. But doesn't mean that it's a good move for the Rangers either, right?
No.
So yeah, I don't know what they're doing. Like the Rangers feel like they're gonna be in a hole for a long fucking time if they keep going on like this. Like I'm really not sure what their direction is. They feel very directionless.
Yeah, it feels like they're really confused. Yeah, on where they're actually like wanting to go. Like, what's your guys' projection? Do you want to be good next year? Do you want to be good in 3 years? Like,
Yeah. Oh
what's the
yeah. And then
plan
I
here?
forgot to mention that. Yeah, too. And they traded for Pedersen from the Canucks, Marcus Pedersen they gave him a first round pick.
Yeah,
Like what
really
is that?
confusing
What's the
move.
point of that deal? I mean, good for Vancouver. Vancouver is finally embracing the tank and the rebuild, which is good because they'll like we're talking about with the process. Like hopefully they do it right and they can build this team up the right way and get a solid core. But um, yeah, I don't know. They're a
Yeah,
little lost at sea.
it doesn't seem like they have a clear plan.
No,
It just feels like they're
they're
just
just
making random moves.
making moves to make moves, right? Like yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think another team as well that like I don't really know like Anaheim. I'm not really sure what they're trying to do, or I mean I know that obviously they're trying to win and get better, but it really feels like they took a step back here.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So there's definitely quite a few teams right now that feel like it doesn't feel like there's a lot of winners of this free agency, you know? It feels like there's a lot of teams that kind of just
Middle of
floated
the pack.
around, didn't really do anything, you know. The Blackhawks are, you know, going out and signing. Obviously that trade in itself was terrible, and then they go out and pay Byron $12.5 million a year, which is insane. I know that we need to be ready for. I think people need to understand that the cap is going up a shit ton, and so we're gonna have contracts that feel wrong when they're not really that wrong. People were reacting to the Darren Radish contract like it was some egregious overpay, and then you're seeing these guys come out and everyone's getting paid 8.5. They just gave 8.5 to Truba,
Yeah.
right? Like
It's starting to look a lot better with time now
yeah. So and
already.
I think people just need to adjust. Like we're about to see Kale McCarr probably and Quinn Hughes get paid like $17 million a year, maybe more. Who knows? Depends what they really want to do. Because if they want it, they'll get it, right? So, but still, like yeah, I don't know. The Blackhawks, we were just talking about the process. They are fucking rushing their process for sure. So, um, yeah,
Yeah, I mean Kaprizov is already making $17 million. There's a guy who's making a lot of fucking money.
yeah. I mean, but that contract, it's a lot of money. And it's still probably too much money, but it won't look as bad in a couple of years probably if he continues
Yeah,
to be the
yeah,
elite player that he is.
But if he's making $17 million,
Yeah, no,
right? Like
the new floor, like McDavid's gonna get 20 plus when he signs his deal if he wants it at least, right? It's up to him, but
yeah, he's the one guy who I think might not do that because he just wants to win, man. Like
yeah, he might not want to hinder the team he's going
I
to.
don't
I don't
think
think he will either, but I'm just saying that's what he could get if he wanted it for sure, like
100%
no
on the open
doubt.
market. Yeah, I think he'll come in like a million, probably 2 million below what he could get, just so he can try and win. I think that McDavid is that kind of guy. He just did that with his extension with Edmonton. He could have gotten more, um, but that's not the point. The point is that the ceiling for some of these contracts for these players is going to be at levels we haven't seen before, and people are need to adjust to that.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so is there anything else you want to cover? Any other teams? Any other moves?
Nothing really off the top of my head. I think we pretty much covered all of it for now. I mean, we're saying all this stuff about teams and free agency, winners and losers, but we're also like, what are we like? We're not even 48 hours
It's true. We
in.
have a long
So
ways
like,
to go. Also, wait, there's one more thing I want to talk about. Ovechkin.
yes,
He's back. He's back. And we didn't talk about the Capitals because I feel like they're a team that, they don't have. They felt like they were kind of in that middle, and it feels like now they're pushing, And I wasn't so
yeah,
sure about, some of the moves they made, but now when you put everything together, like their team is pretty good, actually. All the moves,
yeah.
the trades they've made, the
I like it.
signings, like overall, with all the additions, they've become a significantly better team, and they've become a team that I think will make one last push for a cup with OV. Not saying they're a cup contender, but I think they're definitely a playoff team now, for sure. And
Yeah,
that
and
division is not that
I've heard
strong,
some.
so
It isn't, and I've heard some people like shitting on the Boone Jenner move, and I don't think it's a bad move.
it's
I
not a
mean,
great
maybe
it's
he's
not a
getting
great
paid.
contract. But once again, like they're going for it now. It's so clear they're going for it now, right? You go
Yeah,
and you get um talk from Buffalo, right? That's a pretty hefty contract, but he's gonna help your team win now, right? And then you go out and you trade for Kyrou. I mean, you're trading for a guy on a down year, but you're trying to win now. So you add all these players,
yeah.
and they're
Kyrie's gonna bounce back
yeah,
too.
he will too. I believe he will as well. So like you look at their team on paper now, they're pretty solid fucking team. So look out.
I just want to say though, like with the Boone Jenner thing, I mean, like this guy has scored 20 goals in the NHL lots. He scored 30 goals in the NHL before, a long time ago, but 20 goals pretty recently. So I think he's still capable of being a 20 goal guy if he stays healthy,
I was gonna say it's the
and
health
he's
for
gonna be
him,
in a
right?
better
It's gotta stay
offense.
healthy, but
He's got to stay healthy. But he played 67 games last year, which isn't awful.
no.
Um, so yeah, I mean, if he can stay healthy, I think that's not a bad deal at all. Um, obviously, yeah, like, a little bit of an overpay, but like I think they needed to get a guy like that, and so similar with the Leafs with Sissons, it's a position of need, so you pay a little more than maybe they're worth.
Yeah,
But I don't think it's gonna like hurt them too much.
yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so if that wraps everything up, then I think next episode we were talking about doing some maybe divisional rankings after this. I think that'd be fun to do. Kind of see where we think teams stack up now after all these moves because we may not get some more moves for. I mean, we'll get some small stuff, but I think this is a good time to like kind of adjust the rankings of where we think teams will be. Maybe who we think makes the playoffs. It's still early to do that, obviously, but it's always fun to do, and
Yep.
we can really get some more opinions going that way, right? Get some takes. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So for now, I guess that's it for today, and we'll see you guys in the next one, and hopefully have some interesting rankings.